Good morning, children. Today we'll begin the sixth chapter, Rural Development, on page 100 of your book, Indian Economic Development, page 100, chapter 6. We had completed the question and answers as well as the chapter number 5. Today we begin chapter number 6, Rural Development. Introduction. In chapter 4, we studied how poverty was a major challenge facing India. We also came to know that the majority of the poor live in rural areas where they do not have access to the basic necessities of life. What are the basic necessities of life? In Hindi, you would say roti, kapda, makan. Food, shelter, clothing. Agriculture is the major source of livelihood in the rural sector. Mahatma Gandhi once said that the real progress of India did not mean simply the growth and expansion of the industrial urban centers, but mainly the development of the villages. This idea of village development being at the center of the overall development of the nation is relevant even today. Why is this so? Why should we attach such significance to rural development when we see around us fast growing cities with large industries and modern information technology hubs? It is because more than two-thirds of India's population depends on agriculture, and that is yet to become productive enough to provide for them. One third of the rural India still live in abject poverty. What is the meaning of abject poverty? Absolute poverty. That is the reason why we have to see a developed rural India if our nation has to realize real progress. What then does rural development imply? So simply, if we say, India is progressing because of the urban, we have so many, what you call technology hubs, modern industries, large booming cities. But if our rural areas lie underdeveloped, not developed at all, it does not reflect the actual image of development in India. Why? Because about two-thirds of the people still live in rural areas. And out of those two-thirds, he says one-third of those people live in abject poverty, absolute poverty. So what is rural development? Rural development is a comprehensive term. It essentially focuses on action for the development of areas that are lagging behind in the overall development of the village economy and some of the areas which are challenging and need fresh initiatives for development in rural India would include development of human resources including literacy, more specifically female literacy, education and skill development, health, addressing both sanitation and public health, then land reforms, development of the productive resources of each locality, infrastructure development like electricity, irrigation, credit, marketing, transport facilities, including constructions of village roads and feeder roads to nearby highways, facilities for agriculture, research and extension, and information dissemination. Dissemination means spread of information. Special measures for alleviating of poverty and bringing about significant improvement in the living conditions of the weaker sections of the population, emphasizing access to productive employment opportunities. All this means that people engaged in farm and non-farm activities in rural areas have to be provided with various means that help them increase the productivity. They also need to be given opportunities to diversify into various non-farm productive activities such as food processing, enabling them better and more affordable access to the healthcare, sanitation facilities at workplaces and homes, and education for all would also need to be given top priority for rapid rural development. It was observed in an earlier chapter that although the share of agriculture sector's contribution to the GDP was on a decline, the population dependent on this sector did not show any significant change. Further, after the initiation of reforms, the growth rate of agriculture sector decelerated to about 3% per annum during the 1991-2012, which was lower than the earlier years. Scholars identify the decline in public investment since 1991 as the major reason for this. They also argue that inadequate infrastructure, inadequate means not sufficient infrastructure, lack of alternate employment opportunities in the industry or the service sector, increasing casualization of employment, etc., further impede means obstruct rural development. The impact of this phenomenon can be seen from the growing distress witnessed among farmers across different parts of India. During 2007 to 12, agriculture output has grown at 3.2%. Against this background, we will critically look at some of the crucial aspects of rural India like credit and marketing systems, agricultural diversification, and the role of organic farming in promoting sustainable development. So what is agricultural diversification? Diversifying, that is going a little away from the real agricultural production. Like we could have, let's say, in the agricultural sector, when you are growing food crops or horticulture, you can have what you call fruits which are canned, fruits which are preserved. These all become a part of the diversification in agriculture. They belong to agriculture, but they are a little different from it. So the byproducts of agriculture is the diversification. Then he says, we will also look at organic farming. What is organic farming? You must be knowing. Organic farming is using or growing farming or cultivating crops without the use of insecticides and pesticides. In fact, we are going to use only pure manure. That is organic farming, and that is nowadays catching up because nowadays people are very health conscious, and in major parts of the countries, people prefer organic food to the normal food. Why? Because they are health conscious. They know that insecticides and pesticide grown crops could lead to health problems. So we are going to touch upon these agricultural diversification and the role of organic farming for promoting sustainable development. And you know what is sustainable development? Development leaving behind some things for the future generation. Okay? Credit and marketing in rural areas. Credit. Growth of the rural economy depends primarily on infusion of capital from time to time to realize higher productivity in agriculture and non-agriculture sectors. As the time gestation between crop sowing and realization of income after production is quite long, farmers borrow from various sources to meet their initial investment on seeds, fertilizers, implements, and other family expenses of marriage, death, religious ceremonies, etc. Now, what is the gestation period he talks about here? He says, as the time of gestation between crop sowing and realization of income after production is quite long. So, understand it like this, children. The farmers grow the crops in the field. It takes time for the crops to grow to its maturity, where it could bear food, crops, would give grain, vegetables, etc. So the time period from the growing to the time when the product is ready for selling in the market, this time period is called the gestation period. Now, when the farmers grow, at that time, they can do nothing but wait for the crop to get ready. So this gestation period, what happens to their expenses? What happens to the money required? So he says, as the gestation between crop sowing and the realization of income, which he will get after production, is very long, farmers will borrow from various sources to meet their initial investment. That is, for growing seeds, sometimes he may not have money to purchase seeds. So what does he do? He goes and he borrows money for purchasing seeds, fertilizers, implements, and other family expenses if they happen to be. Like there is a marriage in the family, there is a death in the family, or there is some religious ceremony, he requires money. So what does the farmer do? Till he gets his money, when he sells his crops, he goes and he borrows. He borrows from various sources. At the time of independence, money lenders and traders, they exploited the small and marginal farmers and the landless laborers by lending to them on high interest rates and by manipulating the accounts to keep them in a debt trap. So during the time of independence. What was the source from which the farmers got their money? From the money lenders. And now these money lenders really exploiting them. How? By charging them very high rates of interest. Okay, by manipulating the accounts. You might have seen in many Hindi movies. Person claims, I've already given you this much, but he says, who's going to give the interest? Interest on interest. So these people, they manipulate accounts and always keep these farmers in their debt trap, debt in these कर्ज, कर्ज में डूबे हुए. Okay, so they are unable to get out of this debt trap. A major change occurred after 1969 when India adopted social banking and multi-agency approach to adequately meet the needs of the rural credit. So it was only a major change came about after the year 1969 when India adopted social banking and also multi-agency approach so that they could meet the need of rural credit, to give credit to the farmers. Later, the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, abbreviated as NABARD, NABARD, that is the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, was set up in the year 1982 as an apex body to coordinate the activities of all the institutions involved in the rural financing system. The Green Revolution was a harbinger of major changes. Harbinger means the main cause, the main reason for the changes in the credit system as it led to the diversification of the portfolio of rural credit towards production oriented lending. So after the NABARD was set up, in which year? In the year 1982. It was the main body, apex body, which coordinated all and every activity which was involved in rural financing. All these activities were coordinated now by NABARD. Okay, and this led to rural credit towards production oriented lending to the farmers on the basis of production, on the basis of their production. The institutional structure of the rural banking today consists of a set of multi-agency institutions. Namely, we have the commercial banks, regional rural banks, RRBs, cooperatives, and land development banks. They are expected to dispense adequate credit. Dispense means give. Give adequate. Adequate means sufficient. Sufficient credit at cheaper rates. Recently, self-help groups, henceforth abbreviated as SHGs, have emerged, started to fill the gap in the formal credit system because the formal credit delivery mechanism has not only proven inadequate, not sufficient, but has also not been fully integrated into the overall rural, social, and community development. So now what plays an important role? SHGs, self-help groups. They have come into prominence because of the various drawbacks still being faced by the rural sector of obtaining loans from the commercial banks, from the regional rural banks, etc. Since some kind of collateral is required, vast proportion of the poor rural households were automatically out of the credit network. Now, why was there a, what was the disadvantage of these banks? These farmers had to give a collateral. You know what is collateral? A sort of a deposit, or a sort of a, keep away. Like you want loan, deposit your money, your gold over there. Gold ke against loan le lo. Now these people, if they didn't have loans, they didn't have gold, what would they do against? Or then you don't have anything, you keep certain things over there as a deposit, as a security, and against that security you take loans. Now again, this did not work. Why? Because the rural poor people were as it is poor. What would they give as collateral, as a deposit, as a security? They didn't have anything. Even some of them did not even possess land. They were working as tenants in somebody else's land. So that also they cannot say, take, these are my papers, keep it, and against this give me a loan. So the collateral was needed and they could not give the collateral. Some kind of collateral was required, and the vast proportion of the poor rural household were automatically out of the credit network. And because of this reason of having nothing to put down as a collateral, they could not take loans from these credit institutions. So they were out of the credit network. The self-help groups promote thrift in small proportions by a minimum contribution from each member. What is thrift? The ability to spend and use things wisely is called thrift. For example, if you are in your house, the lights, the fans are on, and nobody is in the room. If you are a thrifty person, what would you do? You would go and switch off the lights, switch off the fans, because it is being wasted, not put to use. That is the meaning of thrift. Using things wisely and in a proper manner. So here he says the self-help groups promotes thrift in small proportions by a minimum contribution from each member. So how do these small help groups function? They gather a group of people, let's say in the village, and says, do you want to join the group? They say yes. Then they say, let us each contribute a little part of the amount and put in the kitty bag, so to say. And then we will draw lots of who requires money at that time. That money will be given to that person. So among themselves, they would gather the money, and those people who were in need could borrow the money from these small help groups. So that is how he says small help groups promote thrift in small proportions by a minimum contribution from each member. Each member was asked to contribute something. Now, from the pooled money means the money which is collected from this group, credit is given to the needy members to be repayable in small installments at reasonable interest rates. So this is how people form their own groups, and it is come to known as small help groups, okay, or self-help groups. Why was this formed? Because the rural people, if they required to take a credit from the commercial banks, from the regional banks, needed to have a collateral, a security, a deposit, which they did not have. And because they did not have, they were not given loans. Now, what do? They had the thrifty idea of forming groups among themselves, where each of them contributed some money towards this, and all the money was pooled together, and when anyone was in need, they could borrow or take a loan from this group and pay back, how? In easy installments at very low rate of interest. So by March end of 2003, more than 7 lakh SHGs, that is self-help groups, had reportedly been credit linked, joined together in the process of giving loans to themselves. Such credit provisions are generally referred to as micro credit programs. And this activity of helping themselves for credit is termed as micro credit programs. SHGs have helped in the empowerment of women. It is alleged that the borrowings are mainly confined to consumption purposes. Why are borrowers not spending for productive purposes? Again, here the question is asked. When they are taking money from the self-help groups, they are using it for their own consumption, like there's a marriage in the family, death in the family, or they run out of money, they need money, so they borrow. But they are not putting it, they're not spending it for productive purposes, because again, they first priority is to survive, to consume. Okay, so that is why he says, why are the borrowers not spending on productive purposes? Because they are engaged in consumption purposes. The rural banking, a critical appraisal. Rapid expansion of the banking system had a positive effect on the rural farm and non-farm output, income and employment, especially after the Green Revolution. It helped the farmers to avail services and credit facilities and a variety of loans for meeting their production needs. Famines became events of the past. We have now achieved food security, which is reflected in the abundant buffer stocks of grains. However, all is not well with our banking system. With the possible exception of the commercial banks, other formal institutions have failed to develop a culture of deposit mobilization, lending to worthwhile borrowers and effective loan recovery. Agriculture loan default rates have been chronically high. People take loans but they fail to repay back. Chronically high. Why farmers fail to pay back loans? It is alleged, it is stated that farmers are deliberately refusing to pay back loans. What could be the reasons? Could be many reasons. Thus, the expansion and promotion of the rural banking sector has taken a back seat after reforms. So much so, the banking people have said now no more giving loans to them because they take the loans and they do not want to pay back. To improve the situation, it is suggested that banks need to change their approach from just being lenders to building up relationship banking with the borrowers. Inculcating the habit of thrift and efficient utilization of financial resources needs to be enhanced among the farmers too. Children, we'll stop till here and we will continue the remaining of the chapter tomorrow because we are out of time. So we'll meet again tomorrow. Till then, all of you have a nice day and stay safe.